It's the Agribusiness Report. I'm Tony St. James. We're joined today by Tim Luss. Tim is CEO, National Sorghum Producers. Great to see you.
Good to be with you, Tony.
Okay, so it's been a really big day, especially when we talk about a project that you've been working on here for just a few months.
You know, absolutely. I think certainly we knew a year ago at this time this was coming down the pike, and so a lot of time and energy and effort by a big team and growers and staff has gone into this day. So good to be on this side of it. Certainly understand we still have a process to work through with USDA on finalizing all the details, but exciting to be here today talking about the grant.
So let's talk about the Climate Smart Commodities program. USDA rolled this out and really was a short runway that whether you're taking off or landing, it's short.
No doubt about it. Certainly a goal to get programs on the ground in farm country on real farm acres and get data back. And certainly that's what our grant and our proposals really focused on is you know, how do we work with our growers to collect the data that then is going to be used in a number of different markets in our case.
So let's talk about the funding side of this, because USDA had quite a bit of money, but quite a few who were interested in it. Break that down for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were like 900 projects and $20 billion worth of requests. Certainly, obviously, USDA announced this morning that they had plussed up the original $1 billion amount to quite a bit more. But still, within that, still a very competitive space, and so very pleased to be able to say that we're awarded up to $65 million over the next 5 years for the sorghum project.
So speaking of that sorghum project, can you give us kind of an overview of that?
Certainly, you know, I think first and foremost start with the grower side and working with the growers to make sure that, you know, we're working to pay for practices that they will implement that save carbon, and then we're working to document that so we can be able to share that with the value chain. Of course, the model that our industry is most familiar with, we've been working with for the last 8 to 10 years, is the biofuels industry and the California low carbon fuel standard and what that looks like on that side. I think what we're excited about on the future side is not only continuing to work in that area, but what will really happen on the food side and some of the consumer markets as we look at where we go there. So that's kind of the farmer-facing part of it. We have some great partners throughout the grant and throughout the chain, and very diverse group of partners that will help us meet those goals of collecting that data and working on that. But we always kind of start and end with the farmer, so kind of focus most of my comments on that part of it. But know that you know, this is not simple. There are a lot of components of this that are going to have to be worked out, a lot of data that's going to have to be collected, and in our case, you know, while we are a little bit different than some that are focused on other things, you know, a lot of ours is what's going to work in the drier climates of the Western Plains. And so, you know, our project is focused on Texas, New Mexico, Colorado, Oklahoma, Kansas, and certainly working with some tribal groups in Oklahoma as well there. And when we look at, you know, that geography, you know, water or lack thereof, as we know over the last few years, is a big part of this discussion. So really focusing on what are those practices from a carbon standpoint that will work and will still fit within our environment.
You know, I think a lot of times when we talk about climate and the carbon capturing component, if you will, we're focused on the growing side of it, and we miss the other end of that, what we do with the crop once we pull it out of the ground. And you've already touched on this with the California initiative there, but really sorghum's been out in front of this for a long time.
Well, I'm standing in front of the resource conserving ingredient for a reason. Not only have we trademarked that, but you know, we trademarked the resource conserving crop, and we did that long before there were any grants out there in terms of things, just because that's kind of who we are and the crop that we are. So certainly we'll continue to work, you know, to see where these, you know, where the data comes. I think from our case, you know, we're kind of the opposite end. A lot of people had some data, but then we're trying to figure out how the crop side worked or how that fit. We've had a crop that's performed extremely well in tough areas and with limited resources for many, many years. We just haven't always had the data to document that. So, that's what we're excited about is being able to get on real farms and work through this in different environments and different years, and be able to really collect that data to be able to tell our story even better.
If you don't mind, you've got a field of sorghum behind you. Actually, I was in a field of sorghum last week with windmills behind it as well. It looked really good, but I know that in some places we didn't have a crop this year. As you look at what we could be pulling out of the ground for 2022, any thoughts?
Next question. No, it is. It's a tough year. I mean, right now we're projected to have the lowest national yield that we've had almost since hybridization, and just tells you how rough it is, over how big a geographic area. As resilient as sorghum is, it still takes water, still takes a little bit of water, and so it's a tough year, and we'll thrive and do the best we can and hold on, and we have. And in a lot of areas, farmers are going to harvest a crop. It's just not going to be the yields that we're used to, certainly, from a sorghum industry standpoint. So, I think this is a crop that a lot of growers in certainly this part of the United States on all commodities are going to be looking forward to having behind them and looking towards a brighter 2023, hopefully.
But at the same time, demand has been great, which really opens the door for next year, yes?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was just talking to one of our big marketers last week, and, our entire crop size this year may be less than what we exported last year. And so that just gives you an idea that, we're going to have a lot of demand and a shortage of product. So I do expect we've continued to see basis increase just weekly here as we've going into harvest, and certainly believe we're going to have some very good prices and some very good market opportunities.
Tim, if somebody wants to keep up with what's going on in the sorghum industry, and obviously there are two sides of this. You've got the national sorghum producers, but also the sorghum checkoff side. If we want to check out either side of that, where do we go?
Sorghumgrowers.com on the association side, and then, generally links back and forth, but sorghumcheckoff.com on the other side. And so certainly work together as a team on this and continue to work to represent our growers.
Well, we'll look forward to catching back up with you soon as you start to bring this plane into land again on the short runway of how this climate smart commodities program moves forward. Great to see you.
Thank you, Tony.
Tim Lust is CEO of the National Sorghum Producers on today's Agribusiness Report.